Adrian Peterson is back on the stock report, and it's going up. The Week 9 running back stock report. That's coming up next. Already to Week 9, we've seen a lot of running backs go down, and that's led to some running backs flying up the stock board, and that starts this week with Adrian Peterson, a 36-year-old all-time running back, a guy that has led many fantasy managers to the promised land in, well, years ago. However, he might find himself to fantasy relevance with the injury of Derrick Henry out a minimum of 6 to 10 weeks following a foot injury that he had surgery on Tuesday. And that leads to Adrian Peterson signing to the Tennessee Titans practice squad. The trade deadline has passed. Tennessee failed to trade for a running back, despite the fact that there are multiple running backs out there that they probably had the opportunity to acquire, and they signed a 36-year-old running back to their practice squad. His role unknown, but the fact is they don't have much left, right? You're talking about a guy in Darrington Evans who was drafted last year, is on season-ending IR already. So Derrick Henry, Darrington Evans, 2 of the 3 running backs really on this roster that were, slated to play this year, gone. That leaves Jermey McNichols. We'll talk about him later. And Adrian Peterson. So Adrian Peterson, a guy who's built to kind of do that early down dirty business between the tackles. And, he's going to have opportunity to seize that early down role at some point, probably some point here very soon. Now, we have to wait, see what type of shape he is in. That's one of the reasons probably why he was signed to the practice squad. I also imagine that Tennessee in some way, shape, or form will also find somebody else to sign to their roster. I can't imagine that Adrian Peterson is going to be the only move and addition to this roster at the position. And we also have to talk about the fact that there's no passing game upside for Adrian Peterson. So he's going to be a guy who's a low-level flex play at the position in PPR formats with, touchdown dependency. We have to wonder, what is his efficiency going to be behind this offensive line that was probably, made to look better than it actually is with a guy like Derrick Henry running behind it. And Adrian Peterson's not that type of guy. Adrian Peterson hasn't been that type of guy for many years now. And so despite the fact that he has a lot of name recognition, he's not a guy that I'm going out there and spending a lot of fab on. He's not a guy that I'm putting a lot of stock in. He is, to me, a speculative ad and nothing more. There is a possibility he becomes a flex-worthy play for you at points, a spot start type guy. But right now, he is a speculative ad only to me. I'm more interested in a guy like Jermey McNichols, who is 2.1% rostered. To me, stock up on that guy. Add for sure in PPR formats. He already has a role in the passing game, and there's no way his role doesn't grow in some way, shape, or form with Derrick Henry not in the equation. There's really no depth behind McNichols. Right now it's McNichols and Adrian Peterson. There's going to be a shift in offensive philosophy in Tennessee. This is not going to be your standard ground and pound, run and play action. There is going to be an offensive philosophy towards A.J. Brown. He is your number 1 asset now on offense as far as being able to make plays and be able to make big plays. And we've seen that the last 3 weeks, and we will see that continue. A.J. Brown probably should have been in my wide receiver stock report because his stock right now is out of fucking control, especially with the the demise of Derrick Henry. We see that Julio Jones can't stay on the field. A.J. Brown, that guy, his stock is out of control right now. I hope if you bought him low, congratulations, you did well. But the fact is, right now, Jermey McNichols is the guy that, is going to be the man to get, I think, most of the opportunity, at least right out the gate for Tennessee. I think he's the one that has the most appeal for PPR in this backfield as of right now. But, right now, this backfield is not very sexy. I had talked about it with Adrian Peterson. I don't think this offensive line is great. I think Derrick Henry makes it look better than it actually is. I think Jermey McNichols, we've seen it. Jermey McNichols is more of a scat back. He's more of a guy that is used in the passing game the way that they have been using him. He's not a between the tackles runner. That is why they added Adrian Peterson. They're going to try to, mash these guys together to create, their running back. But the fact is I can't see how they don't add more depth to the running back room. I'm interested to see how that goes. But as it stands right now, Jermey McNichols is the number one guy I want out of that backfield. Another guy that's stock right now that kind of has gone out of control. A lot of people gave up on him early. He is right now 32% available in ESPN leagues, only 68% rostered. And that's Michael Carter Jr., running back for the New York Jets. That stock is up for a rest of season ad. For sure, this guy, if he's on the waiver wires, you should be looking for him and you should be adding him to your roster right now. They finally figured out how to use this guy. I hate to say it, but, Zach Wilson just has an eye for downfield and downfield only. This is the same problem that Drew Lock had in Denver, right? He never was willing to take the plays that were given to him. And right now, the plays they're willing to give New York are dump-off passes to their running backs. In the last 2 weeks with Mike White under center after Zach Wilson went out with MCL injury, we're talking about guys in Ty Johnson, another guy whose stock is up right now and widely available out there, and more so in PPR than standard formats. But a lot of that has to do with the fact of their passing game usage. Their efficiency on the ground is not great. This offensive line is not great for the Jets. But Michael Carter is a guy that has been getting a lot of opportunities. 17 receptions the last 2 games. He has at least 14 rushes or 14 touches since week 4. So he is getting opportunity. That's not elite opportunity, but it is good opportunity, especially when you're talking about a lot of that now coming through the passing game and PPR formats. It's a lot of easy points for you. At least 14.8 points in PPR formats for the last 3 weeks. And right now, he's surged up to RB20 in PPR. So this is a guy right now who's surging up the stock boards. A lot of people asking, is he going to be the second best rookie running back rest of the season? I don't know. I'm not sure about that. But I was really hot on New York coming into this season. I was really excited about Robert Saleh. I've cooled off a lot on him. A lot of the decisions that they've made have baffled me. Their offense to me is very vanilla, but hate to say it, without Zach Wilson, who I was really excited to see, they've looked a lot cooler, a lot more under control, and it looks a lot more like the offense that we probably would expect. That it takes what you give them and then looks for explosive plays when they're there. And as opposed to trying to force them all the time, Zach Wilson, sorry, buddy, but you're trying to force it a little bit too much. And so right now, Michael Carter, stock up, add him for the rest of the season if you can find him. If not, make sure that guy is, stays on your roster. I think he's got really good rest of season value, possibly ends up being an RB2 rest of season. Guy that is short-term stock riser right now, and that's Boston Scott. 5% rostered ESPN league. So it was Kenny Gainwell. And I even fell victim to this. Kenny Gainwell was thought to be the guy last week. A lot of people added him. A lot of people, including me, started him. Still managed to get away with a win despite the start. Yeah, I got that little nervous scratch there, I know. Yeah, that was a bad call on me. A lot of people, I'm kind of giving up on trying to figure out this Philadelphia running game. Your Myles Sanders, it sounds like he wasn't frustrated. It sounds like he actually texted Nick Sirianni being like, let's go. After the game, after the running backs got so many touches, so many more touches than Myles Sanders has been getting this year, right? It was kind of a shame for everybody that invested in Myles Sanders and then for everybody that went and turned to Kenny Gainwell, and it ended up being Boston Scott and Jordan Howard. And then Kenny Gainwell got some nasty mop-up duty that didn't do you any good. And so Boston Scott right now looks to be kind of the guy, but I mean, that was a good matchup for him in Detroit, and it's not as sexy moving forward on the schedule. You're talking about Myles Sanders on the IR for at least 2 more weeks. So if it's a 3-week injury, you get Boston Scott for 2 more weeks. Not sold, like I said, on the schedule for the next couple weeks is for him to being as good as he was last week. Only got 12 touches. So 2 of those turned into touchdowns. Has 3 touchdowns over the last 2 games. So he does need touchdowns in PPR format to return value, which he's got in the last couple weeks, but like I said, we've seen a real Jekyll and Hyde with this running game this year. One week they're running double digits with Myles Sanders. The next week he's running the ball 2 times. So the moment you trust something in this backfield, it seems to kind of backfire in your face, and it's going to be really fucking hilarious if they settle on Boston Scott and he's really good until Myles Sanders comes back. Because then if that happens, then I'm expecting big things from Myles Sanders. And then if that doesn't happen, well, then I just don't know what the fuck to think. But Boston Scott right now, good little short-term ad. I think more for, like I said, he scored 2 touchdowns last week. You're not upset, but this is more of a standard league ad, more of a low-level flex play in PPR because, only 3 receptions this season, not really used in the passing game. So he gets his points on the ground and getting touchdowns. And this is not a team that's got a lot of rushing touchdowns from the position outside of the last 2 weeks. So another guy that stock is up, and this is a speculative ad, more so based on injury than anything. So if the player in front of him, and that is James Robinson, is injured, if this foot injury is bad or he misses any time, then Carlos Hyde, 6.7% rostered, moves up the stock board for a short period of time as a guy that, has a role in the passing game especially when James Robinson, if he's not going to be there, he's going to have a role in the passing game. He's going to have a role in the running game. He's going to probably be damn near an every down back. From what I understand, they claimed Devin Ozigbo off the practice squad, so that's never a good sign when they're looking elsewhere for a running back, and Ozigbo is a guy that has familiarity, at least with the franchise, not this coaching staff, but with the Jacksonville franchise, and they have familiarity with him. So that to me is not a good sign for James Robinson, at least in week 9, which is a good sign for Carlos Hyde. Tough matchup though, Buffalo. But I could see them using, I talked about this in the week 9 wide receiver stock report with Agnew, that if there's going to be a wide receiver that probably has an opportunity to kind of shine in PPR, it's probably Agnew taking all those short area targets because you think Buffalo is going to take away the outside and the downfield targets, which opens up, Carlos Hyde to maybe have a role and be a mid-level flex play in the PPR format. Maybe he finds a way to get in the end zone, but I don't think he has a lot of success running between the tackles for Jacksonville against this stingy Buffalo defense. So, once again, this role is dependent on James Robinson's status. If James Robinson doesn't play in Week 9, then you look at Carlos Hyde as a guy that you can add as a, middle range Week 9 flex play in PPR. And, you can also use him, obviously, in standard as a guy who will be, a guy who's volume dependent. They're not going to be a lot of other guys probably getting touches in that backfield, so I imagine he's going to get double-digit touches in standard. That's always a good thing. A guy that stock is really, down and moving down fast. That's Antonio Gibson. His stock, to me, is plummeting, and it's not good. It does not look good. This is panic level shit right here with Antonio Gibson. He still has a few tough matchups yet to come. We're talking about a guy that's dealing with a shin microfracture surgery, and no matter what you tell me, no matter what they say, whether he's healthy, it's not bothering him. It obviously is. They have been utilizing him less, it seems, by the week. Last week, we saw an infusion of Jarrett Patterson. So now Jarrett Patterson now may be a significant piece of this rushing game, but just enough to siphon enough work from Antonio to be, not even a flex-worthy play. And then that also would be just not quite enough for Jarrett to be worth a damn in fantasy. So now we're talking about two guys in Washington who probably aren't worth a damn, and it's probably all up to J.D. McKissic now. It's probably the J.D. McKissic show down the stretch. Every other game he's going to be good. Continued this last week. Didn't think he was going to be a great play. It was a great play against the Denver Broncos. So he continued his every other week of being great. So I don't know what that means for Week 9 for the J.D. McKissic show, but, if it follows trends, it means don't start him. But right now, Antonio Gibson his stock is plummeting to basically, he's very close to being unstartable. In redraft leagues, he's very close to being droppable. And he's very much on the panic button. I need to see more at this point. I need to see more moments like that 73-yard touchdown off the screen against Buffalo. That's about all I can really think of from Antonio Gibson this season is like one play, and it was against a tough opponent, but I can really only think of one play from Antonio Gibson, and you think last year, we still have maybe some hope. Last year was on Thanksgiving Day against the Dallas Cowboys. They scored like 5 fucking touchdowns or something. So there is still hope, but I'm right now panic button. I see a transition right now away from Antonio Gibson, and he's a guy that I am looking at this point to replace in my starting lineup if you still have him as a guy that's starting as an RB2 or a flex on your team. Guys whose stock is surprisingly up would be Myles Gaskin, a guy who's become a low-end RB2 at this point. It's not pretty, but you're getting more than you paid for, actually. You're talking about a guy that was drafted, anywhere from like 24th to 26th RB off the board, and right now he's 19th in PPR. So, you're getting technically more than you paid for, and I know it's been frustrating early on, but he is starting to get better, and a lot of that has to do with Tua. We are very impatient. We don't like to be sensible as why something's not working out. And when you think about Myles Gaskin, it really felt similar to last season where they brought in Jordan Howard. They tried to force Jordan Howard to work, and Jordan Howard didn't work. And then around week 5, Myles Gaskin finally started to be the guy. And when he was out there, he was pretty good. And this year, there was Brown, right? And Brown got in the way. Well, Brown's on IR, and Salvin Ahmed is not really that great. So it is more the Myles Gaskin show now, and he does get to be on the field now more, and he is scoring more touchdowns, and he is getting opportunities now down near the end zone. And when you think about, Johnson coming in, being signed last week, that he's not a goal line guy, so he's not a guy that scares me. If anything, he's kind of like Myles Gaskin, except not as good. So I think his stock is up. He can be a little frustrating, and there are going to be weeks where you probably don't want to start him. But in decent matchups and good matchups, this is going to be a guy who's probably going to be better more often than bad. Like I said, 19th running back right now in PPR. So in 12-team formats, it's not bad. You're doing pretty good. You got what you wanted. Everybody that drafted this guy, he's out kicking his draft day coverage. So just no panic button. I think we all drafted him hoping he was going to be kind of like Alvin Kamara light. And I even thought that, that could be his upside. But I think when at the end of the day, at the end of the season, we're going to look back and it's going to be like, yeah, that looked a lot fucking like last season. And we were excited about him last season. So Myles Gaskin, stock's going back up. A couple weeks ago, he was in a put up or shut up for me, and he put up. And I like that. And he's looking better. Tua's under center. Think stock's up. Low end RB2 right now. He's not a high end. He is a guy that sometimes you do want to get away from. And then we're talking about the final stock of the day in David Johnson. Down to desperation flex territory. It's unfortunate. We thought, with Ingram being traded back to New Orleans, okay, it's going to be the DJ show. Week 8 was anything but the DJ show. In fact, we're talking about, 3 other guys that were involved in the running game. Houston used David Johnson, Phillip Lindsay, Rex Burkhead, and Scotty Phillips in week 8 in the backfield. Well, that doesn't work to make David Johnson somebody that's start worthy. Rex Burkhead outproduced this guy, not only on the ground, but in the passing game in week 8. And now it's just back to being a clusterfuck in the Houston backfield. This is a franchise that's obviously just punting on the year. They have a quarterback who isn't suspended, who is a top 5 quarterback in the league that they couldn't trade and they won't play. This is obviously a team that's just punting this season down the road. They're seeing what they have in any player they have. And David Johnson right now is the most desperate of flex plays. To me, he is a guy that went from being a guy that you were excited about just a couple days ago to being a guy that you're thinking about dropping now because of everything that's going on in Houston. How can you really, really trust anybody in this backfield in Houston? And that obviously includes David Johnson. Didn't start out good for this team. It looks like maybe they're going to go by the hot hand and they're just going to give everybody a go. I don't know. But that's bad news for David Johnson, a guy that we thought might be, at the very least, the guy in the passing game, and that did not happen in week 8. So now to me, he's either a desperation flex or a guy that's just got to ride the pine. And also somebody, to me, is droppable. If you got the space, you see somebody else, you see a Kadarius Toney out there, I'm dropping him for Kadarius Toney. You see I mean, there's plenty of guys out there still. I would drop him for a guy like Christian Kirk, who's a guy that's like 61% available in most ESPN leagues. So David Johnson, stock's just down, and it's basically bottomed out to the point where it's just dump them and forget them. So unfortunate to see, but at some point that happens to all these players, and David Johnson looks like he's on the verge of that. I would like to thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Every Sunday morning, I join Mike Lynch and Rashad Taylor on 1080 The Fan here in Portland, Oregon. We take start-sit questions, and we would like to take your start-sit questions. You can text them in on Sunday mornings to 1080 The Fan at 503-250-1080, and you can listen on Odyssey.com. I will have the link for the station down below in the description. Thank you once again for watching, and make sure that you check out my Week 9 wide receiver stock report.